Power of the Tribe podcast. I'm John Connors, your host. I'm also the founder and head instructor of Connors Martial Arts in Norwood, Massachusetts. We teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai kickboxing, and mixed martial arts. Come down and see us. Give us a call, send us a message, and we'll help you on your martial arts path, help you grow, become a better person, and a deadly fighter. What do you think? I think you're fighting will improve.
Deadly human being.
And I'm here with Dan. I have a T-shirt for you. Dan Robin,
Excellent.
my co-host. So, Dan, I'm going to hold it up to the camera. I don't know if I'm doing this right. It's got our logo here. So one of our students tweaked the logo. I don't know if you see the difference. Put the little peak in the middle and made
I
it
did
gold.
not notice the difference,
Yeah.
but got it.
Very nice. That's Ravi. He has I think he has New England Sign Company or something.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
a really great guy, and he makes great designs.
Yeah,
Thank you,
awesome
Ravi.
guy.
Yeah, and then on the back, what would a world champ do? What do you think about that?
Good?
Good.
I mean, did he come up with it, or did
No,
you?
I came up with the slogan. That's for you, buddy.
Thanks.
Size large. I came up with the slogan. I was a little on the fence with it. I'm like, is that a little too much?
It's just a
But
slogan. I mean,
Just a
you don't
slogan,
need to overthink
right?
it.
Get you inspired a little bit.
Right. People
Yeah.
should, I've been wearing around the podcast T-shirt, which is also out there.
The yellow one, the
Yeah.
podcast. Uh-huh.
So, barring that, if you don't have the podcast T-shirt,
Come
get
get
one of these.
Send me a message, and these are not for our super fans. These are for $20. Send me $20, except for you, Dan. You can get a shirt like this. Otherwise, they still do have some of the yellow Power of the Tribe shirts.
And that's for super fans?
That's for super fans. So who did I tell you? Matt McCarthy. Oh, Chris Ramos too is commenting on YouTube. So I got to get him a shirt. I don't think I got a shirt out to him yet. I think he got engaged or something, and I never saw him again. He seems to be happily engaged with some wonderful young woman. I don't know if we'll ever see him again.
I heard from Dave Browning, Pat Browning's brother. He's been listening, catching up, binging.
That's cool. Awesome.
Another way to go through these podcasts, just binge.
Binge is good. I would encourage people, Dan, this is going to be a little controversial, to listen to our ghost episodes. They're some of our least watched on YouTube episodes for some reason. And they're my favorites. Yeah.
And they're not being watched.
They're not being watched.
What's going on? People are judging too much by the headlines, I think.
Headlines are
because the headline can be misleading. So
how dare you? What are you talking about? I come up with those headlines.
Well, I'm just saying you might be
headlines in general is what you mean.
In general.
Can be
like
misleading.
If you say ghost episode, maybe people are like, I don't want to hear about ghosts. But they don't realize there's deep truths like there is in every single one of our episodes.
Maybe I'll retitle them as something more appealing. Don't you hate that, though, when you're on Facebook or on the web someplace and you see some headline, you click on it, and then you start reading this article and you realize
it's constant,
that completely misleading headline.
Right, or it doesn't even have the information that it sort of touts in the headline.
Right,
right.
Right. I just did that this morning. There was some Malaysian jetliner in 2014 that disappeared. Do you remember this at all? Yeah. I think it's like MH370. And they had another one that got shot down someplace.
Right. But this is the one that just vanished.
This is the one that frickin' vanished. And it says something like love notes, desperate love note or something sent by somebody who died on that crash right before it went down or something like this. I was like, they just found it. Like, oh my God. And I started reading the article, and it's complete bullshit.
It's
like
nothing,
they found a baseball cap like 2 years ago that said meet me in the garden or something, and it was like completely speculative that had anything to do with the flight at all, but they made me read this dumb article.
And let alone when there's others where it'd be like, some random, be like Halle Berry looking great in this slinky dress, and you click and you're like, no photo, and you're like,
that should be against the law.
You're like, what the hell is this?
That's
outrageous.
That's outrageous.
Yeah, that's an outrage.
I know.
My example maybe not as deep as
I like your example.
But so for our headlines, first of all, I don't think we've had any headlines that promise photos of anyone in a slinky outfit.
No, I think
anything like
I
that,
think
but-
our headlines are all very accurate to the content.
They are, but so what?
Yeah.
They actually are accurate, but to the point still stands that you can say ghost story or something like that, and everyone's like, I don't want to hear ghost story, and it's
Well,
like,
Dan, why-
just give it a listen. Like, that's
Why
not-
do you have your opinion on ghosts that you have?
why?
Yeah.
Through my experience, through my life.
Yeah, and you just don't cater to nonsense, right? You're a person that believes in objective reality.
Yeah, well, that's what the follow-up is. So my experience, and I've never experienced any sign of anything supernatural.
But you also value objective
Right.
reality.
Right.
There's some people that don't put a lot of value on objective reality. And I think that sort of coincides with jiu-jitsu. Like jiu-jitsu, it's objective. You go in there and somebody tries to strangle you and you try to strangle them, that somebody might get strangled. And
Right. So all the way back to like our second episode, we talked about my martial arts history prior to jiu-jitsu.
yep.
And it was rife with that. Like, no one wanted to confront objective reality. And I didn't understand that. I never even actually thought of it in this way exactly until you just said it just now. But it was, people, like I said, people would say, do you want to learn throwing stars? And I'd be like, why would I want to learn throwing stars? I was grounded in what I would really,
Can I tell you one that's I find particularly annoying? The guy that can throw 262 punches in 1 second. And he just goes like, "Ah!" His fingers kind of flap around like an inch away from himself. And nobody ever says, what's the practical application of this? If you walk up upon somebody who's sitting in a chair completely motionless, and then you can hit them 200 times in a second.
Yeah, I would hate to get hit 200 times in 1 second.
Yeah.
That would,
So
with no,
dopey,
yeah,
though,
it's
right?
ridiculous. But that was what was. Many of these people would sort of like, they didn't want reality. They like wanted to live in a sort of a fantasy. Like, I'm learning karate, I'm learning whatever it is, I'm learning kung fu. And some people now, maybe even jiu-jitsu, they're living in a sort of a fantasy. They want a fantasy. And the difference is with jiu-jitsu, you might come in wanting a fantasy, but reality is going to hit you in the face in the very first class. Like, you can't be like, so you can be like, I'm an absolute master in some of these fantasy schools and never have to prove it, never have to test it.
That guy, he wrote the book Sapiens, and he wrote some other books. Yuval Noah Harari is his name. He's a professor from Israel, I think. A very popular book that he wrote.
As often comes up, I do not know that. Once again, I do not know that author.
But one of the main themes in his writing is that humans are the most cooperative species on the planet by far. So we have sort of ants and termites that can cooperate at the level of 10,000 or some odd members. Human beings can cooperate by the millions, with 300 million Americans.
Screw you, termites.
Yeah. But he says it's all centers around a fiction of some sort. So we come together and cooperate and organize, but it's always around a fiction, not a truth.
So would a political party or a religion be a fiction? Religion seems like an obvious.
Religion's obviously a fiction, yeah. So, yeah. And then just this sort of a fiction about, this is the United States, this is where the border is here and here.
Right.
It's sort of a manufactured concept that everybody's agreeing upon. The Canadians and the Mexicans and the people in the U.S. are agreeing that here's the border right here,
I see what you're saying. So we manufacture tribes, right? Like we
manufacture tribes, but we also manufacture fictions somehow.
In
to
order
come together.
in order to manufacture the tribe, you come up with a fiction that everyone believes in, and
yeah,
as opposed to like the ants, who there's no fiction. They're like, we all work together to live, and
Right.
they're not deluding themselves in any way. They really do need to work.
They're not.
You're saying ants are like, well, maybe, I don't know. Maybe there's some fiction there that I'm not unaware of. But with humans, I guess, like these groups that feel very tight actually do not need each other to survive generally, right? Or you have to manufacture the fiction to get a group of 350 million rowing in the same direction, right? You have to
Right.
come up with some reason why should all of us work together.
Right. Yeah, it's very unnatural. It's not like our tribe of 50, 150, whatever that Dunbar number is. Which, oddly enough, our academy is a tribe. It's sort of, we got, a little over 200 members. I'm sure you don't know everybody there, Dan, but all 200 perhaps, but it's kind of recreating that Stone Age experience a little bit, where we're coming together and helping each other out, challenging each other, supporting each other. I got to think that's psychologically healthy and physically healthy for people.
Right. It's back to if there is a theme of the podcast, to the power of the tribe,
Yeah.
why you want to, it's just good for you to be part of it. And I was actually thinking on the way in how there is an element, of course, in any gym, even this one, there's people who don't get along or people don't like each other. That's fair enough. But there is a close to unconditional acceptance in the gym. And what I was thinking is this. And again, I don't know if anyone's like listening that's not part of the gym. I assume some of the listeners are. But I think people would be surprised that you have an MMA gym or a jiu-jitsu gym, whatever you want to call it. But it's a lot of fighting going on in the gym. It's very physical. I think people would be surprised at how completely, in my opinion, accepted everyone would be in that gym. Like, I think it is fair to say, and I assume you'll agree with me, that if you took like the last people that you think would be comfortable there, I think would be made comfortable there. And what I mean is, I think if you had the most exaggerated nerdy person come in, I think they would feel comfortable there and be accepted there. Or the most, whatever you want to say, like the wimpiest or
I think that
effeminate or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I think they would all be, there's just not a norm. I don't think anyone could get away with being rude to them or unkind or unhelpful.
I agree.
So
I think that person probably might have it easier than somebody came in who was really, a physical force and sort of rough and tumble. They might get a little bit more pushback. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes if somebody's a really big, strong guy and they tell me, I think I met this guy traveling or something, and he was probably my age, maybe a little older, but he was a really big, powerful guy. Had done a lot of weightlifting in his life, and he said, "I want to try this." And I was like, "You should definitely try it." I said, "But be cautious when you go in, because you may intimidate people because you're so big and strong looking that they might come at you harder than they would otherwise."
Right.
You know what I mean? So you gotta.
that might be the biggest problem, is looking and appearing tough and not being that would be the worst combination, right? Like, and
Maybe, yeah.
or mentally, feeling like having no experience with wrestling or physical confrontation, and then people coming after you.
I agree. And here's the other thing I think, Dan. I think conflict is inevitable in life. It's impossible to avoid conflict, right? And a lot of jiu-jitsu is about resolving physical conflict in a way. So we're sparring with each other. We're both trying to armbar or strangle each other, or whatever we're trying to do. And we're going to do it in a way that's respectful to each other. So I think that's really good. It teaches you how to navigate a semi-violent conflict in a respectable way.
Yeah.
Is that making sense?
Yeah.
Occasionally, tempers flare, though. Have you ever seen anything like that at our academy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen it. I think you know the story with me. Well, obviously, we'll leave everyone's name out of it, but like, I feel like I'm one of on this continuum of who goes hard or violently. I feel like I'm on the gentler end of it.
I think you're a
like
very reasonable person. I think there's some people who are prone to accidentally elbow you in the head and knee you in the face more than others. And I would say you're a more considerate training partner. Doesn't happen that much.
Right. I try not to I try to be extra cautious with that.
Yeah.
And my story was from many years ago, but it was someone lost their temper with me. I think you've heard this, but it was, I was trying to get a guillotine on them. And I guess everyone out there knows what guillotine is. You're choking someone.
Now I remember
and
the
I couldn't
guy.
finish it.
Yeah.
And for me, I was like, why can't I finish this? And I was trying to experiment. I was shifting my grip, and I was kind of leaning my shoulder in, and you
were doing what you should do in jiu-jitsu.
I was like, why won't it finish it? But I was squeezing the crap out of his head for an extended period of time and sort of wondering why I couldn't get it done.
And he wasn't tapping.
He wasn't tapping.
Okay.
So then some period of time went by, and I let it go. So I even
Okay.
let it go. You know, I was like, I don't want to keep crushing this guy's head forever.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. Maybe I'll ask him if it
Yeah.
was working or something. So I let go, and he pops up with this infuriated expression. You know, and he's in like now, you know, he pops up and like quickly passes my guard. You know what I mean? I think I was maybe guillotining from half guard or maybe probably from full guard, whatever it was. But
he was skilled.
Yeah, he was skilled. Yeah. And he pops up and past my guard, and he looks furious. And I'm lying there like, So now I'm on my back going, So he puts his knee into my stomach, and he's like grinding it in with this furious expression, like clearly angry and trying to hurt me, like, you know, like trying to punish me.
Yeah.
But the only thing is also he was kind of light.
He was lighter than
me. So it didn't
have the bone crushing effect.
Yeah, it wasn't bothering me that much. I was so if you picture
probably infuriated him more.
Picture the scene, and he turned all red, like beet red, and he was like beet red and furious and sticking his knee into my stomach. And if you picture me, I'm sort of lying there, like looking up at him, like, is everything? What's going on? You know, like, what are we? Is everything?
You mad, bro?
Yeah, exactly. So the round ends, and he's like still mad, and I'm like, hey, you know, because again, I'm in the. I think I have already had a reputation in the gym as not getting in these kind of things. So I was like,
right.
Hey, you know, I felt like you were going a little at the end. Were you mad or, you know? And he was like, you want to roll that way? I'll roll that way, brother. You know what I mean?
Brother.
Sort of like, brother, like, like, what? You want to do it? We'll do it. You know? And I'm like, what? You know, it was just sort of like, what? Like, so that's an example of I felt like I did almost nothing, and I still ended up in one of these.
Dan, as an aside,
yeah,
if somebody gets emotional, they get reactive with you, and they have a complaint about you, and they cannot articulate it clearly why they're mad at you, I think they lose all credibility. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he might have been able to articulate it. He might have thought.
I don't think so when they go, if you want to train like that. When they talk in abstract terms, if they don't go, so, you know, I've been on the same end of.
People got mad at you?
Not so much about jiu-jitsu.
Like
I mean other things.
Yeah.
Where I would say to the person, okay, you're upset with the way I handled it. How should I have handled it? And then they can't give me an answer.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're just mad. This is probably not in a jiu-jitsu situation.
Yeah.
Probably more in a spousal-like situation.
A spousal
shall we
type.
say? Where they're really mad at how you handled something. And it was one of those kind of great things, and you're like, okay, I obviously was trying to do what I thought was right. You didn't like the way I handled it. How should I have handled it? And they cannot give you clear instructions. That usually tells me their complaint is lacking value. What do you think?
I think I'm staying out of this. We're talking about spousal situation, but don't you think also if what I've seen too is like if someone can't articulate exactly what they're mad about or can't justify what they're mad about, I'll receive the carpet bombing. You know what I mean? It'll just be like just angry statements. It could be about other things, about unrelated points, about, you know, it's just
I don't understand your point now, Dan.
It's just saying they'll just come after me.
Yeah, they're in total
they
reactive mode.
Right.
There's no sense that's being made.
It's like, all right, I can't quite justify this, so I'm just coming for you with like whatever I can think to say and whatever I can think to.
They're somehow hurt and blaming you for their being hurt. And rationalization doesn't really matter at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that.
No, I've had people get mad at me. I had a guy who used to train with us, really nice guy. He moved out of state, and he would go hard. Really nice guy. His name was Fred, actually. Do you remember Fred? He did some wrestling, I think, maybe in high school. He was probably close to our age. I don't really know how old he was. And he used to get people in headlocks a lot. So they started calling it a Fredlock. And he was a really good guy. But I was rolling with him one day, and I was on top and side control, and I let him roll into me a little bit. And I used to do this little thing where I would take my forearm and hand and kind of put it over your shoulder, but kind of under your back, and then I would roll you back onto your back. And what it does is it's almost like a chiropractic adjustment, if you can imagine what I'm saying. But for some people, if they exhale while you're doing it, then it gets hard to inhale because it creates this pressure. And he got really mad at me. I let him go. I go, "You all right?" He goes, "Yeah, you put your arm underneath my back and squished me down on it, and I couldn't breathe." I'm like, "Well, yeah, we're doing jujitsu.
Yeah, right.
I'm trying to make you feel uncomfortable, strangle you." But he got mad at me. I didn't think I was out of line at all. I mean,
So
I let it go right away.
So
I didn't
here's
like
a
torture
side
him.
jiu-jitsu point, and I've brought it up in the gym before. We've never brought it up on the podcast.
But Fred, if you're out there, I apologize. I'll never do that again. I shouldn't have done that. But go ahead, Dan.
So it's come up in the gym a number of times, not on this podcast, which is I philosophically, and I really stand by it, approach what we're doing as it's martial arts. You are still learning to fight. I feel like it does get more and more away from it. Everyone talks about that, how like jiu-jitsu is getting more of the sport, and that's all fine. But it's not a ballet class. Like it's like something like that. Like I would never, ever complain about someone going too hard. Or like we've talked about a little bit, which is if they flail wildly and elbow you in the face, like with no regard to your safety, I could get annoyed. Or if they, clearly, if they put their knee on my face and were digging it in, I'd be like, "What are you doing?" You know what I mean? Like, but anything else that like makes you uncomfortable or is hard or is painful, that's what you're supposed to do. The whole idea is to get people to tap out, right?
And then I also think the idea is to be uncomfortable. That's what martial arts is about. I get a little annoyed when people are we going to get air conditioning? It's so hot in here.
Right.
I'm like, for God's sakes, it's supposed to be martial arts, and it's about fighting. It's about, soldiering through discomfort. And
a repeat theme on this podcast is dealing with discomfort, putting yourself out of your comfort zone, and that's what it's about.
I don't even like the fans in our academy, Dan.
So
they annoy me. I'm like, let's just
let
it be as hot as hell and figure it out. You know what I mean? Maybe you'll have to slow down. Maybe you'll have to relax a little bit.
Because
maybe you'll have to be more technical.
Maybe there's something that's okay about this, but even for me, I think, and maybe for you, you slowly get more and more spoiled, right?
Absolutely.
And I definitely have. Like when I came in, I had no idea what it was about. And I was like, well, I'm going to learn to fight. And I remember when I first started, we'd say, we're going to learn throws. And so have someone be throwing me over their shoulder 25 times in a row. And I'd be slamming down the mat. I already wasn't that young to be doing that. And now I'm spoiled. Like if someone said, we're going to throw you 20 times, I'd be like, maybe I'll come back next Wednesday. Like I don't want to be thrown.
I don't want to be thrown 20 times either.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like it's sort of you become more and more. Or part of training used to be like hard conditioning to start the, be like before we start, we're doing bear crawls, we're doing this, we're doing push-ups, and like kind of hard. And wheelbarrows across, and I don't want to anymore. Like, so I'm not saying
Dan,
I wish it was back, but it used to be harder. It was like
I think so.
Part of here is suffering. And now it'll be like Marcelo, like before each, the combatives class will be like, we'll do some jumping jacks, we'll do some, and even that I feel a little like, oh, I'm tired. Like it's like you get weaker and weaker mentally. So I think part of it is mental strength, right? So you shouldn't be in this mindset of like, why isn't the fan on? Why I'm hot? It's like you're supposed to be toughening up in here.
I agree.
And I think you toughen up in ways you never even notice. And one way that I hear a lot that people don't consciously notice, but then, notice it after a year or so, or however long you want to say, 6 months, is that people could pass you by like maybe digging an elbow into your knee and you're like, like you can't bear the pain, so you break open your guard. And then without training it or anything like that, you find 6 months later, they try to dig their elbow into your knee and you're like, this doesn't bother me that much.
Doesn't.
Right? Like things that, someone leaning their elbow on your face is not going to bother any of us at the gym.
Doesn't.
And a normal person, it's going to bother them.
Yeah.
And so another case where I've seen that is both you and I have taken martial arts that involve these pressure point attacks. And without getting into the whole pressure point attack thing, I remember, so this one gym where I know we both were at, that part of the attacks in rolling would be like to jam a pressure point.
Oh, right.
And so you'd actually live roll like we do in jiu-jitsu or in your gym. But then in the middle of it, like they jam their thumb into your neck.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like they would just suddenly jam like some. Yeah. And what you learn is if you roll enough, it just kind of hurts, but it doesn't, you're like, Dan, it doesn't bother me that much.
It doesn't even hurt.
Yeah, right.
It
Right.
actually, it's like a gentle massage now. It doesn't hurt at all.
Or it could be like
Yeah.
annoying.
I don't even find it
Yeah, you don't
annoying
even-
anymore. I don't. Yeah,
So you toughen up when you're not even noticing
I agree.
that you're toughening up.
I remember. So I was used to train with my wife, and she's a very good martial artist, and she was doing one of those pressure point things. I think we were just drilling like on the back of my tricep, where like she's supposed to drill her knuckles into the bottom of your tendon and your tricep, and like you said, it just doesn't really have that much effect sometimes
Yeah.
at a point. And she ended up pushing really hard, boom, and she like jammed her thumb and
Oh,
like
she-
just
she
hurt
hurt
herself really. Yeah, I didn't intend to hurt her. It was just one of those things. But yeah,
So yeah, she actually had to tap from trying to pressure
yeah, it
point
wasn't
you.
good. Yeah, we had a couple of mishaps like that. Another time, she swung it to hit me with an elbow, and she hit me. I don't know if she hit my elbow with her elbow, and really hurt herself. And when she went home and she like took off her jacket or whatever, her arm from her shoulder to her wrist was black and blue. I've
Oh.
never seen anything like it in my life. Yeah. I
Wow.
don't know what she hit, the funny bone. I don't know, or broke something. I don't know, but it was amazing.
But maybe for the people that are, the strikers out there, they should know that if they haven't heard it. For the new people, it hurts me a lot. Like I hate, like throwing kicks for me is always dicey. Like my shins just kill when I've crashed. Me and Steve Whittier crashed shins once early on when I was first started, and I was like, that is one of the most painful experiences of my life.
I did
Like
that with
it just hurts so much.
the worst one I did was with Steve O'Neill. You know Steve O'Neill?
Yeah.
You know, he's just like built like a
Tank.
superhero character. Yeah, he's just so big and strong. And yeah, our shins collided, and I like the back of my teeth started watering. It like hurt so bad. Of course, I didn't show any pain.
What level of pain do you have to get for the back of your teeth to
Oh,
start watering? I
I
didn't
don't know,
realize that
man.
was
It was
you had like
intense.
saliva glands going on. You just
Yeah.
had like glands going off.
Yeah, yeah, and I didn't show it. I totally played it off. But then he was like, "Oh shit, I think I hurt my shin." And then he came in later and he's like, "Yeah, I got a big lump on my shin when we clashed shins." And I was
Did
like,
you
I go,
keep feigning that,
"Oh
that
yeah."
you were
I
you
go,
were on
really? What? Back when we were sparring? Meanwhile, I had the same lump. It took about a year to go away. Yeah.
I know that's weird. I had one like probably my most freakish injury was some kid, I have no idea who it was now, but like his knee came down on my calf muscle.
Yeah, that's not fun.
And
Yeah.
like that happens all the time, but this one was weird. Like
Right.
it was like something felt weird,
Yep.
and I was like, that hurts. And then I was like, this really hurts. Like
Yeah.
it just kept hurting
Mm.
in a weird way. And I
Mm.
swear to this day, like if
Mhm.
I flex both calf muscles, there's like a little indent. I
Yeah.
don't know if that's even like where he hit me. Like somehow
I had
something
similar.
smashed something in my calf
Yeah.
muscle.
I think I was a white belt, maybe blue belt early on, blue belt. A guy like drove his knee over like the side of my calf, like my lower leg was on the mat. And I think it somehow separated the fascia or tore some tissue off the bone. So then for about 2 years, I had like a little spot there smaller than a dime that if you just touch it with your finger, it would be excruciating. But otherwise, it didn't bother me. Like you had to find the precise spot. And
That was sort of like with my calf too.
yeah.
Like that one spot just hurt for
Yeah,
incredibly
very funny.
long.
So I think you're saying that we're completely invulnerable to pain, but we also have excruciating pain occasionally.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, but we all made it through all this. And
We
again,
did.
whenever we do this, it sort of becomes like, does this sound bad for those like thinking about the sport? But
Yeah.
I don't think it is, because I think we're trying to walk the line. Tell me if you agree. Is like, I think it's valuable for the people out there training to know, like, because especially you're a good example where it's like, well, John's just never hurt, and it's like, no, he's hurt. Like it hurts. You know, people get.
Yeah.
It hurts a little bit. Like that's part of what
Just
that's what we
navigate your
mean.
way
We're saying
through,
get
yeah.
out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's literally, it's physically, you're out of your comfort zone. You're getting
Right.
hurt. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And if anyone out there thinks they're the only ones battling injury, they're sort of obviously not.
No,
Yeah.
many injuries are, I wouldn't say self-inflicted, but the participant is putting themselves in a position where they get injured too. Maybe how they're training.
You go hard all the time.
Or hard in a certain way, Dan, and I think, of course, if you train with somebody much larger than you increase the risk that you're going to get injured. It's probably until you develop a certain level of mastery, maybe like your purple belt, you shouldn't train with somebody too much bigger than you. I don't think there's a lot of benefit to it.
I heard some very, very like old school prominent jiu-jitsu guys who we both know saying they won't train with big guys at all. Like
guys that have been in the art for a while?
Yeah, or been in the UFC. And they're like, I don't want to train with a 230-pound guy. And they could tap him out.
Mass times acceleration.
They could tap him out, but
yeah.
They're like, I just don't want to get hurt. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want them landing on me and leaning on me.
Makes sense. Every time I've had a significant injury, the person was over 200 pounds. Definitely. So there's something to be said for that, for sure.
Yeah, my worst injury was my ribs, and it was a big guy, and I landed we fell, and I just landed my side onto his knee. Yeah. So it's like his knee hit the mat, and my ribs hit his knee, and messed up my ribs, and I feel it was his knee was this big, and it was probably same thing as a smaller guy. You don't have the same injury.
Well, yeah, and to go back to something else, Dan, one of the things I do like about our academy, and I think most places, people can get a little bit irritated with each other, and there could be a little bit of friction where it looks like the beginning of a fight, and then the guys deal with it and they get over it, and then they're fine.
Yeah,
which is awesome.
I mean, I've never seen a fight in the gym, right?
There's never been a real fight in our gym, I would say. No, we had way back in the day. There was a couple of MMA fighters.
There's been some. I know some close
scrappy
ones.
with each other a little bit. One of the guys was way out of line. I mean, you're kickboxing somebody, and you don't like how it's going or what they're doing, so you throw your gloves off and you want to have a bare knuckle fight. I mean, that's just silly.
First of all, it's sort of funny because you're already fighting.
You're already fighting, yeah.
But I know a bunch of little incidents, but
yeah,
not that many considering.
Not that many considering we've been doing it, Dan, for 14, 15 years now. Yeah.
And it's an atmosphere where it's easy to get mad, right?
Last week there were a couple guys in the gym. I don't know if I should name them or not, and they got a little friction with each other.
You can tell me after.
I'll tell you, it was Tyler King, who's a very competitive guy, and Sean Newell, who's a good competitor too. And they were going so hard, Dan. It was so funny. I was training.
Was it stand up or MMA?
They were doing JiuJitsu, I think, on a Saturday.
Okay.
And I don't know if I was training with my son Rory, maybe. And I think something was going on where there was hardly anybody in the academy at the time. It was maybe Steve Chorney and somebody, and Rory and me, and these two guys. And we have a pretty big training area, but they were going at it so hard that my son and I had to keep getting up and moving to the other side of the mat.
Like no matter where you move.
Yeah, we would go all the way to the one end down where the fence is, and next thing you know, they're like right on top of us. And we go, oh, geez, and we get up and we have to go all the way down to the other end, and then they're back there.
And this is not for stand-up.
Well, they were getting on their feet at times.
Right,
yeah. They were all over the place. And then somebody did something or said something that one of them didn't like, and then they had some brief, brusque words with each other. But before they left, they shook hands, and it was all resolved.
Right.
So I think that's great. And I didn't have to intervene because I hate to have to intervene. It's like we're adults here now.
Right. But isn't this the point relates to something you've been saying, which is the value of the training in itself, where this physicality allows things to not simmer in a way. Isn't that, it's sort of, to me, it's related to what you like about the training. Like you work things out, by being physical and in this controlled way. So you don't, it's harder to go home seething mad when you've been rolling around with the guy you're mad at, or you've been, or even someone else, and you don't keep things inside, you work it out. I think you work it out on the mat.
And Dan, you know that I pride myself on apologizing when I'm out of line if I do something wrong. And I think we need more of that in this world.
Yeah. I don't ever do anything wrong, so but
And
I,
this
in
is your
theory,
chance to apologize
in
for what
theory.
you said before
Are you
we
trying-
started this podcast.
Is this all? Is this all been a lead up because you want an apology from me?
God damn you. And don't ask me to explain why I'm mad, because I can't explain it. That's one of my pet peeves. Not enough people sincerely apologize anymore. It's crazy, but
I'd say 90% apologies are aggressive, right? They're more like almost an anti-apology.
I think
the
90% are not. Yeah, they're
Sorry.
not apologies. Yeah, they're like, well, I regret that you got upset. You know, what I
Yeah,
mean?
right.
How's that an apology? That's crazy, right?
Fine, sorry. You're like, all right.
If you insist, I will say something that can pass as an apology. Yeah.
But so back to, I think
Mhm.
there is this great, I don't know if I don't not summarize it, but I just want to
Yeah.
like great sense of tolerance. I think we went past pretty quickly in the gym for all kinds of people, I think. And like to your point,
Yeah.
I think the more sensitive someone is or uneasy someone is about coming into the gym, the less likely any of these things would ever happen to them.
Dan, I'll tell you something. I agree. And I almost want less background information from people when they come in, unless it's something that's a serious medical issue where I need to know. Otherwise, I just want to take people at face value and try to observe and discover where they're at the moment, and then just help them make progress, because that's all that really matters, you know. Sometimes we have parents that come in that'll tell us their child has certain issues about maybe learning or attention or something, and I almost prefer not to find out. I just want to discover how they're going to behave in our class, and just work from there. And
Right, because the preconceived notions don't always work.
I agree. I agree. And I don't think we've ever had a student that we couldn't help them progress and teach them. And you know, we would do in-house tournaments sometimes for the kids, and we don't even ask them how old they are, or we don't even weigh them in. We've just been observing them training all the time, so we know we're going to put these 6 students together in one division because we know it'll be competitive. And they may be different ages, they may be slightly different weights, they may be different belt ranks, but we're just observing them, and we know where they are in general in progress in jiu-jitsu, so we can do that. And I think it's almost a better approach.
Yeah. That's one funny thing we haven't talked ever, I think, about the kids' classes. This may be the first time you brought it up.
Yeah. I mean,
I used to be integrally involved in it when my son was there, but he stopped and he grew up and grew out of it. And
yeah.
so now I don't even think about him.
I wonder what he thinks about it. I wonder how it's affected his life for that training, because I know he did a little wrestling in high school or just junior high.
Middle school.
Middle
he stopped
school.
by high school.
Yeah.
And but I always said the reason I wanted him to do it was, it's so, again, same theme. It's so, we understand. There's some people that just love it. They love to get out there and just get in front of everyone and compete. But for, I would say most people, it's unpleasant, right? You're like,
I think most people, it's
I said most people don't want to get up in front of everyone and have to read a poem or like have to go up and introduce themselves.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? Remember in class where it'd be like, we're going to go around the class and just say your name and what you did this summer. And most people would feel like, oh boy, like here it's coming to me, and you'd feel like nervous.
Yeah.
That's just to talk. And this would be like, I have to wrestle against somebody in front of everybody, or fight somebody in front of everyone. It's terrible tension.
Yeah.
And I really always think, and still do, you learn to deal with that, and then you go to your next class and they're like, introduce yourself and say what you did this summer, and you're not going to have the same, you're going to be like, I'm all right. It doesn't even have to be wrestling and fighting. I feel the same way about my daughters doing dance recitals and getting in front of big crowds and dancing. It's like, all right, like you're getting in front of everybody's looking at you, or a musical or something. So it's not purely, but there is still something about having to compete against somebody one-on-one. It's just
I think so,
high
and
pressure.
in a combat sport, because it's very primal. You know, the ability to fight and defend the tribe is something that's primal
Yeah,
and
and just
instinctive.
win or lose, as opposed to like singing a song or something like that.
Yeah.
And I like to think that. So he says, my son says, to this day, like, yeah, like his nervous system has adjusted so that a lot of things don't make him as nervous,
That's
because
great.
because nothing's as tense as that, right? Nothing is as all eyes on you. You have to perform. You literally have to fight against somebody. That is it. Is he accurate, or is he just has that like? Because at the time I told him, this is why I want you to do it. So maybe it's just in his head that I told him that that's the effect. But I believe.
I've seen students come into our kids program, and they are very timid, extremely shy, and then through the course of their training, they definitely develop a strength and a self-confidence that serves them, and they transform. They're different.
And for adults, I know there's a lot out there. Like, I have many friends like this that cannot even imagine themselves being someone that could physically handle themselves. Like, it's just not in their self-concept. And they could, like if they came to the gym. And I talk to people about it, and they sort of almost don't believe me. They're like, me? How am I, how I'm going to learn to fight? Like, it seems silly. But they could.
I think so. Especially jiu-jitsu. It's so technical that you see it, Dan. A lot of people come in who are not obvious athletes, but they're bright, sometimes intellectual, conscientious people, and they immerse themselves into it, and then they develop very high-level ability to do jiu-jitsu. Because you don't have to be able to run fast or jump high to do it. So
right.
In that way, it's a very egalitarian martial art, I think.
Right, and there's always an advantage to being super strong or athletic or quick or whatever. But among the sports, even compared to, I always said about boxing, if someone's super quick and strong, it'd be very, very difficult to ever match them. But that's always true, and it's true of jiu-jitsu too, but less than anything else, I think. I think jiu-jitsu, more than almost any particularly combat sport that you could think of, I think, like you said, a dedicated mental approach can help you more.
Definitely.
Unless you disagree, but I think,
no, I totally agree.
I think if someone's super fast and strong in boxing,
it's tough to overcome speed and
I mean, it's tough in jiu-jitsu too,
but it's all that.
But it's more doable.
Definitely. Yeah. Definitely. And like we always say, you give yourself this experience of feeling at risk, but you're completely safe.
Yeah.
You get to do it again and again and again.
So should we mention that dichotomy that we spent 40 minutes talking about injuries we've had, and then saying completely safe? I think it's actually true though. I know it.
Hey man, like, no surgeries.
Here's the other difference. A lot of what we talked about is things that hurt is different than an injury.
That's right.
And I think that's something you really learn. That's a huge thing you learn in the gym, and that toughens you up. Right, like that's, for me, that's what you learn.
I actually make that distinction when I give instruction before sparring. I'll say, do not injure your training partner.
Right, hurt them.
I don't say don't hurt them. I say don't injure them.
Right.
Yeah,
it's a huge, and I think that's one of the fundamental things people learn. Stand-up is a good, even a better example for me, a clearer example, where like a boxer or a fighter learns, like, if they get punched in the face, but they learn, like, maybe someone in a bar gets punched in the face and they just go into shock and they drop, even if it just hurt. And boxing, you learn, like, or fighting, hurt doesn't weigh in. Like, nothing that hurts affects the fight that much. It's injury that affects the fight. You're like, you've knocked out my knee. I can't step on it, or I've been knocked unconscious, or I've been I can no longer lift this arm. Those are injuries and they affect the fight. Things that hurt don't affect it, right? I think that's one thing you learn through training, like things that hurt. It's sort of like not opening your guard when someone's jamming an elbow into your knee. You're like, this hurts, but it's not, I don't need to.
It's not material.
Yeah,
it doesn't
it's
matter.
not important, right?
Yeah.
And I think without noticing it, that'll happen in life. Like, you'll bump your head on something and you'll be like, I'm not injured, it just hurt. You know what I mean? Like, it's
definitely,
that's one mindset change. I don't know if I ever heard anyone talk about that specific mindset change that can come through training, but it's that you learn, like, things that hurt are not important. It's just, things that, an injury is what you've got to watch out for.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's information, that may indicate an injury, but it may not. It may
Yeah.
indicate not necessarily a significant injury, so you could disregard it. Yeah, definitely. And we're in kind of that bubble wrap world now where
Yeah.
nobody wants to be uncomfortable at all or have any pain.
Right, and that's our recurring theme, right? You come to the gym and you deal with it, and you
Yeah, get uncomfortable and make progress. Yeah, definitely. Right, Dan. Do you want to summarize the? I typically summarize.
I'd like to see you do it because this one was all over the place. Good luck.
That's why I was trying to shovel
Is
it
that
over
what
to you.
I figured that's why you brought it up. Summarize this one,
I don't even remember what the hell we were talking about.
but you got to pull it onto one coherent theme
But
because secretly we always have
I think
one
I think
theme
it's
underlying
about
everything.
being uncomfortable, not being afraid of. Yeah, you're either going to be.
It's like the environment at the gym,
Mm,
really, or why you'd come to the gym. I think as the overall.
I think so. Help you get a little uncomfortable, but we also have support. Everyone supports each other.
To me, it's that dichotomy between right discomfort, but also safety and support,
Mm,
and you have both things.
that's it. You get your tribe. I'm so happy I have a tribe. I really am. I'm going to be there tonight, Dan, at 6, teaching jiu-jitsu. And tomorrow we're competing up in Danvers. We have 13 students competing at Grappling Industries.
It's going to be an
Yeah.
interesting one.
It'll be great. Yeah, I can't wait. It's going to be
Looks
wonderful.
like people within the academy lined up against each other.
We have a little of that, unfortunately, but it's all good. Yeah, we'll have a lot of fun. My son is entered in everything he can enter. He's going to have.
He's an animal.
Yeah, he does well. He's got a great mind for it for sure. All right, folks. So please share, rate, and review this podcast, and tell your friends about it. And you're off next week, Dan, right?
Yes.
So we will not be here next week, but we'll be here the week after that. All right. Talk to you soon.